We're live, I think. Yeah. Okay,
Ooh.
cool. All right, welcome everyone. We're spectating Purdue Gold versus Indiana University. Purdue Gold is currently playing from a LAN event, so it took us a bit to get set up. Joka actually had to download Overwatch on his setup, which is fun. But we're all here now, and we're gonna get started soon with the maps and the bands.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if Purdue gets a bit of a land buff here, or if the new setups kind of throw them off a bit.
For sure. I mean, this is a good team. They've been scrimming a lot lately. I've been kind of following, Purdue Gold just because I know a lot of the players. And
hmm
I mean, they're putting in the work. A lot of it like with the LAN in mind, but
hmm
hopefully it shows off here in this ECAC match or NECC.
Yeah, record-wise, I mean, Purdue been doing really good this season, 3-1. Their loss coming first week against Purdue varsity team, which is somewhat to be expected. Hoosiers, on the other hand, 0-4 coming into this match, so definitely been struggling a bit. But
Mhm.
playing on different setups can definitely throw things off. So can't take any matches for granted.
Of course. It looks like Lijiang is going to be the first map of choice here. Can't say I'm surprised. Um, I mean, how often do you start on Lijiang in this game?
Yeah, I feel like literally for the past like 8 years, however long this game has been out, 8 years? Yeah, 8 years. This is like everyone's number one pick to start with. It's just like a classic. So many teams just, want to gravitate towards playing a brawl composition, and that's, what really shines on Lijiang.
Mm. Yeah, and it's one of those maps that's so like studied, it's so played. There's so much you can do just because of how well the map is understood.
hmm Yeah, 100%.
It appears as though Purdue is going to opt to ban Pharah.
Mm. I respect that. Farah is a bit of a pain on both Gardens and on Night Market. There's just, especially on Gardens with all the spots to be booped off on the bridge, and even the center of point. There's just so much space for Farah to fly around, get cover, knock people around, push them on and off the point. Shoot through the windows. It can be hard to deal with.
Did miss this, but Indiana University will be banning Diva, and that is
Mm.
particularly a comfort pick for Joka here. And, like you mentioned, this is a very brawly map, and Diva
Initiating
very much so
launch.
thrives in those environments where she can get a lot of value off of Fence Matrix.
Yeah, definitely. Diva's also a huge counter to Forest. So Purdue probably seeing the Diva ban, a little scared of a Pharah coming out. So that's probably why they also wanted to ban the Pharah.
For sure, solid ban phase from both teams here on Lijiang, and we're going to see the comps here in a second. So,
Ready
My
for
throne
battle.
is where I say
No
it
way.
alright, yeah, we're going to see Joka on the Junker Queen. I mean, yeah, very, very much so a brawl character. Loves playing in those close quarters.
So, what's on the
Represents a lot of
docket?
damage.
Winning, I hope.
Hello. Namaste.
Both teams starting on Sim here. It'll be interesting to see if either of them actually stay the Sim. Sim can be good here to TP immediately to point, but it wouldn't shock me if they're just using this for spawn positioning.
Mhm. And it looks like at least on the side of Purdue, we will be seeing a switch back to Emre, who is very strong right now after receiving a short bit of buffs. People are saying he didn't really need them in the first place and that they were overkill. But
Yeah,
we're going to see how that plays out in the fight here. As we already see Cadenza fall to Genesis, and now we find Toodle in a bit of a precarious spot here. With only the Lucio healing available, is going to fall to actually P, and now it's a matter of whether Joka, his Lucio, can hold the point, which he's not going to be able to.
yeah.
First fight to IU.
IU definitely engaged way quicker there, despite having the Hog versus the Junker Queen. I don't love the Ana here with Junker Queen. I think Kiriko is much better. It just allows you to play far more aggressive with your Queen. The Ana kind of can be left on an island here with this type of competition.
Yeah, and we see now who's going to opt to run the map here, trying to kind of get a better angle. Trying to poke him out is asymmetric, but already we see the health bar dropping low on the side of IU, and now a lot of space is being taken as we see Wasp in the backline. But Joka does fall in the process, however, Wasp finding 2 onto the Joker. Echo, and now it's a very trade-heavy fight as 2v1 can walk close out against the 1 HP Echo. It does not look like it. Oh, just barely. Good attempt from Wops. And I must say, they did get the flip on the map there, so they do get 14th, but that's about it.
Yeah, the flip is huge here, lets them come back in here. You know, still at least 2 fights to go here. Purdue also coming up on multiple ultimates, pretty even on the side of the down barrier, but they're able to get it early.
See, once again, just a very aggressive engage from Purdue, gonna force a lot of space out. Nobody wants to fight the Junker Queen, however, the hook is gonna be lethal. She's barely able to live, and the beat drop does enable that aggression to turn back on. However, Whole Hog is going to find J Joka falling off the map, and that copied Echo Ult is just going to clean everything up here. Clean fight from IU.
Yeah, that's a rough, you know, fight loss there from Purdue. They had to use the sound barrier and still lost the fight. You know, IU coming to this next fight with both support ults. Purdue has no real counter to the overclock from the Sojourn. They still have 4 ults of their own, so, you know, still plenty of weapons to work with, but it's not going to be an easy fight by no means.
What you can do here as Purdue is to get aggressive, and immediately we're going to see aggression as J Joka falls to the Roadhog hook once again. However, Wops is able to get Sojourn off the map, so the overclock is no longer online. However, oh, and Wops to find another with a nano boost. Yeah, this is a winnable fight if you're Purdue. However, is going to fall. Wop finds one more on asymmetric, but it's not enough as Genesis is going to clean up the kill on Wop, and that is going to be 0.1 to IU.
Time for the reckoning.
Yeah, you know, despite the aggression there on Purdue's side after, you know, the first fight where I feel like they didn't play aggressive enough, you know, the Hog just doing a great job of, you know, stopping that aggression. Felt like, you know, the Hog on IU's side was able to hit a hook almost every fight, either securing a pick or, you know, forcing lots of cooldowns from Joka on the Junker Queen. So, you know, that really stopped, you know, a lot of Purdue's brawl there.
Keep the plan.
I feel like in a aggressive brawl heavy comp like Purdue is running, you want to use that shout and that amp speed for aggression. They were being forced constantly to use it reactively just because of the Roadhog hook.
100%. Interesting to see that IU will stay on the Hog here while, you know, Purdue is going to go to the new tank, whose name I forget, but she plays a lot of range. Yeah.
It does, yeah. Definitely going to enable Joka to stay away from that Roadhog hook and not force those awkward positions. We're going to see Purdue flip the map and force IU onto this high ground here, as Roadhog is now just on a trip to find Doodle, but Doodle's just sliding on out of there. Purdue's in a pretty good spot, controlling a lot of the center of the map. However, the kill box is being set up by IU, and if you are WAP, you're going to do everything you can to try and force them off this height. You see 2 fall on the side of IU. Again, that's Suzu, but it's not enough, as it is just the Tracer, and I don't think Tracer's going to win this 1v5.
Yeah, definitely some good swaps here on the side of Purdue. You know, the Dominant definitely making a difference here. Joke is able to survive way easier, you know, especially on this type of point where you can just, you know, bunker down in the middle. And I also like the Kiriko switch. Despite having the Hog, you know, I don't think the Ana brings enough value just due to, you know, how easy it is to, you know, just be ran down on these types of maps.
Sure, and it's not as though it's the end-all be-all of the Hog is then, right? There's a lot of counterplay on by IU. We do see Doodle fall immediately to Tracer, and now Joka's being forced to go in space or falling low. Not going to want to brawl with that Hog, however, actually he does find Wop, and now there's no damage. However, IU falls. That is not the best for Purdue, but they can keep fighting J Joka on 30 HP, which is barely going to fall.
Hello.
Yeah, solid first hold there from Purdue, getting nearly 50%. You know, coming up on almost all of their ultimates here. Beat, it's still a little bit of a way to go, but they're matching Beat with IU here. You know, lots of ults are going to come out in this next fight here.
Sure, and we see Wop trying to test his lane here. However, the Roadhog is going to spell doom as you are not living a hook with a Tracer in your face.
Hog has been a great shutdown here for Waft at many points. Waft has had, you know, multiple fights where, you know, gone in and killed, you know, 2-3 people. But, you know, if he happens to get hit by the hook, it kind of just ends him there, and Purdue loses a lot of their kill potential.
For sure. I mean, Roadhog on a lane is just such a wall. You're not going to get past a Roadhog sitting in the boss saying, hey, this is my lane. And both Infinite Rush being dropped as well as the whole hog kind of just going to zone off Purdue. And now Jason is being very separated from his team as Calamity also falls into trying to save him. And now Cadenza and Purdue are in kind of a precarious spot, just trying to live if they can.
A little bit of a lead step.
Hog get a stagger those last two members of Purdue.
Purdue does have a bit of an advantage here. You know, IU can only use their beat for one of the overclock, you know, or the opposing beat here. So, you know, Purdue with these DPS ults.
Get aggressive with the overclock. Actually, he's going to use it in retaliation. Both beats online, and now, I mean, just pure brawl. Calamity is going to fall to Roadhog that hook. That's a threat. But we do see Waft ult finding two as Cadenza finds Tracer, and now Purdue has kind of flipped this fight into an advantageous situation for them as they capture the map and clean up those last kills.
Yeah, huge ultimate there from Waft. You know, at that point, IU didn't have much to counter that. The beat had already been used as a counter to the overclock from the Sojourn. And especially important was that Purdue was able to cap that point early there before even winning the fight. So, you know, now they're already racking up a lot of percentage. You know, this could be the last fight here.
Unfortunate hook onto Waft into what could very well be the last fight of the map. We're going to see IU very much so capitalize off of this. However, Joey's going to push the Roadhog away, saving Cadenza's life. And now this is much more winnable than the fight that could be otherwise. Cadenza's Nate's health bar dropping very low and the health back not coming back in time. Now Joey struggling to survive on point and he's going to fall to Ashley P. And now it's a question of whether Purdue can touch in time. However, I believe the hook from Roadhog is going to be the answer to that question as Waft falls before being able to make it to the point, and that will be map 1 to IU.
Wow, quite the strong showing from IU there on map 1. When I saw the hog in spawn, I thought they were kind of just trolling with the pick, and they rolled out on it, and it was the difference maker there, 100% it felt like.
Absolutely. Roadhog is not a character I would consider to be meta by any means. However, I mean, they made it work, right? They showed us, like, the Roadhog hook can just be such a threat, and it can make it so difficult to contest lanes and get into their backline.
Yeah, it definitely thrives when, you know, chaos can be caused on the side of the other team. You know, if the other team isn't, you know, playing super tight and, you know, always prepared to, you know, I guess kite around the hog's hooks and, you know, try and prevent it, it can get a lot of value here. That being said, we'll see what the next map is, but you know, if there's a lot of range on the map, Hog's definitely going to struggle as the solo tank. You know, doesn't have a great amount of range. You know, can be poked down quite easily from a range. So we'll see what, you know, happens here on the second map.
Yeah, we saw, you know, Cadenza trying to roll out on the Ana just to, you know, apply that anti-heal to Roadhog. But on Lijiang, that's just not necessarily the best pick. I don't feel like Ana lends herself to those brawls as well as some other supports might. So, you know, a map change might be what Purdue needs.
Yeah, 100%. I did see, looks like Purdue chose to ban the Echo. Interesting pick in my eyes. I know IU did play Echo on Lijiang Gardens. It didn't feel like the Echo was overbearing or the main problem. I'm kind of curious, you know, why maybe they didn't try to ban the hog, or you know, maybe it's the case though. IU may only play the hog on, you know, control. I guess you know they might want to wait and see. Will IU try and force the hog everywhere, and you know, will Purdue be able to better deal with the hog on other maps? So you know, it could make sense to save the hog ban for later, depending on you know what IU wants to do on the second map.
It could also be kind of what you were saying, where Roadhog can struggle with those long lanes and sight lines, and Purdue's just attempting to exploit that. You know, turn the Roadhog pick into a weapon against IU. And it looks as though IU will be banning the Domina, which I respect that. Very strong character right now.
For sure, and Purdue definitely felt like they were getting things together, you know, much better when they switched to the Domina. Domina, a great poke tank, you know, which can out range the Hog, block Hog hooks with the shield, and interrupt Hog's heal as well with the knockback into a wall there. So I think Dominate is quite strong into Hog, so it definitely makes sense as a ban in my view.
It could very much so be a disruptive force for the Roadhog pick. So it's just going to be interesting to see what Joey opts to play now that the D.Va is back online. I know Midtown can be a bit of a brawly map at times. It can also favor those sort of poke comps. So, there's a lot of options here. Um, just up to preference. I do know that D.Va does match very favorably into Roadhog. Um, so with that online, that could also make it much easier. Defense Matrix is going to save your teammates consistently from the hooks, and just boostering into a Roadhog, you do so much damage to him since he's such a big body with his missiles and your shots just hitting 100%.
Yeah, totally. I feel like D.Va versus Roadhog is quite the interesting matchup in Overwatch 2 versus Overwatch 1. Overwatch 1, D.Va was such a great pick against Roadhog, acting as, the savior for your whole team there. Now in Overwatch 2 with a single tank, D.Va is still great at saving her teammates, can do a lot of damage to the Hog, but the only issue is if she gets hooked, she has a second or so where she can't use Matrix, and, if the other team focuses her, she could just get blown up. So it's a matter of playing it smart, it's a matter of playing it safe, and, knowing when the Hog has hook, and, if Joka can do that well, then the D.Va, could definitely succeed against the Hog.
And we do see Joey on the D.Va, as predicted. And we see a pretty similar comp from Purdue too, except with a Baptiste instead of an Ana, which I can't say I expected.
Have you checked the scoreboard recently?
Yeah, I think it's a decent pick here against the Hog. If you can throw the immortality to save a teammate who's been hooked by the Hog, definitely a good pick there. Looks like switching sides maybe.
I think we're opting to play the daytime version of the map. I don't know if that's like standard for any CC, if it's like a requirement to play on the daytime version, or maybe, oh no, it just appears someone was bugging, and the reset happened to make it daytime. Interesting.
I feel like from what I remember in the past, NECC does require certain times for maps. I could be wrong. Maybe they changed that now. But if no one's saying anything, I guess it doesn't matter.
Time to save the world? Game on! I heard you're a good dancer. You should try to beat my high score in dance
like you said, it's a strong pick. Bap's a pretty good character. Just not a character I expected to see.
You didn't.
Yeah. I guess the other thing with the BAP does a lot of damage for support. Can help with just burning the Hog, especially with window. If the Hog's peeking a window, immediately dead if everyone looks at him. So there's that aspect of it. The other interesting thing is the sim here again. I'm not sure if they're just TPing out of spawn. I don't think this is a map where that matters a ton. So I'd expect them to keep the sim. And maybe they're gonna TP across to the back left room with the Mega across the main choke or something.
Yeah, it could be interesting to see a sort of sim rotation. It does appear we are exiting spawn on sim, so we may have been right. And immediately here it's just a game of not getting hooked as we set up our rotation. However, Toodle has lost the game and got hooked on the rotation. However, the ensuing chaos does seem to benefit Purdue, at least in some capacity, as Genesis is going to fall. And now IU is down to support. Waft dropping very low. However, trade after the trade is going to happen. And now Purdue has the map completely flipped with Joey and Cadenza just posted up behind them.
Huge kill there from Joey. Although it doesn't seem like it's going to be quite enough here, and the rest of Purdue is not going to come back in time here to contest.
Yeah, unfortunately, just losing Toodle so quickly while making the teleport play turned out really poorly. Despite Joey, able to find many kills, it just isn't going to play out for Purdue. Like they're going to scout out Waft and not going to be able to file a trade out on the way. And that is an unfortunate stacker.
Yeah, early on I liked what Purdue did. They got point control. Lamp did save Waft from a Hog hook. I'm surprised Purdue didn't get any ticks there. IU wasn't contesting. I feel like maybe if they had a second person on point, or Cadenza wasn't jumping off the point as much, they could have got a point there.
Roadhog hook can do such magical things sometimes, and so Cadenza can do that for Joka is going to absorb the bullet shot and get aggressive here onto the Freya. Clem falls to actually be, however. Now your speed and heal aura is gone, and another ridiculous poke going to connect Joey this particular reset.
Yeah, Hog Cooks have been insane. Great pick there at the end. I'm not sure if it's going to matter enough as IU does have Lucio to speed their Baptiste back into the fight. I think everyone's going to be here, you know, at the point of the next fight.
Will prevent IU from playing aggressive. Otherwise, they might want to now down to killer, being forced to go out back. So now, you know, this force will cut space, and you can see that panning out as the Roadhog in the back line. However, he's not going to be able to find out yet. Now back, however, we're going to teleport immediately on top of this Freya on an aggressive angle. And he gets away, however, Wash finds not Tacho. That's Lucio dead for IU. And now with 2 up for Purdue, it's difficult to lose this fight. It's just a matter of cleaning up. Backline, still kind of wailing him out with that defense matrix, and it looks like they're just going to give up the point.
IU does come back in here with the whole hog. We'll see if that's enough.
We see a lot of ult drops, the deep drops, and so, and the clock, and it looks like Joker is just going to find everyone in the chaos.
Great fight there from Purdue. They did have to use quite a lot to win that, but IU also used an equal number of ults. I was a little scared there. You know, Purdue made the smart move taking the fight early as, you know, they were far behind on the sound barrier. You know, when IU engaged, I was a little nervous there, but they had, you know, the sound barrier.
Going to call the Roadhog look, unfortunately. The defense machine could not quite wrap around that corner to save him. And a similar fate will meet Cadenza, and Joey's just going to take all the way back to spawn.
Another crazy hook there from the Hog. You know, feels like half of these are at max range. Purdue does have a slight low advantage coming to this fight here, though, so we'll see what they can do, especially with the
You're going to see him all drop as well as the bullet shot. The bullet shot not going to find anyone, and Joey going to find both the Baptiste and the Sojourn. Then to get traded out in the chaos. Off on Purdue. Freya unable to survive heals, and now favorite fight. Push this part, not gonna get too aggressive, but you know, risk getting cooked.
D.Va has absolutely been the difference maker here on this map too here. You know, Joey sticks with the bomb here as well, so basically has another life to go back as well. Like,
see Roadhog find himself in a very precarious situation here in the middle of the backline of Purdue. Don't know exactly what the plan was there, but it's going to be very advantageous for Purdue as things immediately gone. And now we're just gonna see a great entry to the backline onto the on-run of the Metric. Back, but Waft is trading out for the Sojourn and the Baptiste. Without J-Joka in the fight, he's gonna have to back up from the she will fall, and that is 6-point cap for Purdue.
that on-run almost made a move there. I was a little scared for Joka, but ultimately he came back on top there.
Yeah, I mean, Joey knows the limits of his character pretty well. He knows when he needs to just leave a 1v1. You know, a lot of people, they're gonna have the ego, be like, oh, I still win this, but Joey just knows the limits of D.Va.
Yeah, 100%. And once again, Purdue coming into a fight with an all advantage. They have B advantage. Interesting. It'll be interesting to see if they use it early here. You know, if they have any. I do not have to be.
Such a consistent approach for IU. Now we'll play it slow here and wait for our 5th member before we see a real fight. However, it looks like IU is taking the fight to Purdue, so you're not really giving much an option. However, Waft is giving it to this Roadhog. I did not know that Vendetta could shred things so quickly.
Damage there. Main thing I'm looking at now is the sim wall coming up. You know, that is really good against the Roadhog. Split the map, you know, give a lot of cover where the Hog can't.
He's in response to overclock and the enemy beat. He's in response to that beat. However, Lucio is not looking good against this fight to beat. However, Senza and Calamine both going to fall for no support online. After he is going to fall, so this is a winnable fight, but Purdue has to find a kill now without supports online. Not before to take a main fight. And he is going to fall on Ron. Now, Desperado. Waft's going to find a trade onto Genesis. The fight is over. Force reset, however, Joey is going to opt to use the self-destruction. Looks like the backline has returned to Purdue. Now we're going to back, try to stable the defense matrix out. However, most of them still fall. And now it's just Purdue. I'm kind of surprised to see a bomb use there.
Yeah, I'm shocked by that as well. I was also shocked by the remake, as I thought he was just going to get burned out again and give a lot of ult charge. He did get out at the very least, so they do have that. Purdue also still has the Sid Wall here to work against the Hog. Hog definitely won that last fight for them, poking Loft, killing Loft, you know, looking to kill two Hoosiers in the backline.
Now we're going to see the Sid Wall online. Gonna work kind of out of position. Our both rush and the whole Hog are deployed. Loft opting for an ult here, not going to find anyone. Working out still a lot of space, and now on run disconnected from the team is going to fall. Up one is Purdue, and up two is Purdue. No DPS on the side of IU, and Loft can afford to get aggressive here. He knows he's not going to take meaningful damage. Calamity is going to fall to Roadhog close, however, as IU is right. Falls on run ult. Now Loft is desperate for a kill on this Roadhog. Online window but he falls immediately to the booster. And Joey does find on-ron, but in a 2v1 scenario, or a 2v4 scenario, I do not think Purdue is going to come out on top. Calamity, Joey hanging on to the last of life, trying to build this self-destruct, going to be unable to. That would be the attack phase for Purdue.
Yeah, so close there from Purdue for getting the full cap there. You know, the spawns were just too strong there from IU's side. You know, the Roadhog living just long enough thanks to the beat. You know, the lack of Tootle being alive meant there wasn't enough damage to really burn the Roadhog. And the Kiriko just teleports straight back into the fight, cleanses, and, you know, at that point, it's kind of hard to kill anyone.
Yeah, I mean, Purdue is playing these fights so aggressively, which I love to see. But at the same time, you know, it's kind of working against them sometimes because that Roadhog is very much so feeding off that aggression. You know, we see 5 running in, I throw my hook into them. You know, it's like shooting fish in a barrel. You're gonna grab someone. But in the end, Purdue got a lot of better trades. You know, Diva was such a destructive force in the backline.
Yeah, I'm glad to see the switch off of Symmetra to Sojourn. I like Symmetra on first point attack, because there's the ability to TP straight to point. It just felt like they weren't getting enough value out of the teleport afterwards. You know, there wasn't much need to, especially considering just how much movement all the, you know, characters on Purdue's side have anyway. So it felt like there wasn't a ton of use coming from Sim, especially no shield to build the beam against. You know, here having a Sojourn who can just constantly farm shot against Roadhog with no shield to block it is definitely going to be a good pick.
One thing I'd like to bring attention to as well is Drake's selection of the Yari. And we see the Yari Baptiste backline, which I think I have never seen. But in combination with the Sojourn, you're kind of on triple hit scan DPS in a way. So a lot of damage is being represented onto that Roadhog. We're gonna have to see how this fight unfolds. Whether, you know, Roadhog can kill get in at all. And it doesn't look like it as his health bar is shredding. However, Tootle is gonna fall to actually going to be able to hold that angle. Now immediately down the damage for Purdue. That's slower.
Yeah, that pick is obviously huge there. You know, one thing about the Yari here is, you know, I think it's just a worse version of the Zen. You know, if you want to get a ton of damage to burn the Hog, I think just having the Zen with the Warp
Tootle is going to trade out, however, for not Chacho. And actually, he is also going to fall, and both cooldowns and Kiriko are popped, forcing her death. And now Purdue is able to turn around the fight very well. Roadhog, but it's not going to matter, I don't think. Stabilizing is IU as the Hoosiers comes back from that field. Now Joey is deep in the back line. Yari is not going to be enough to keep him up. Tootle does find actually P, however, I do believe better. Lost not ready to let it go. He's doing his best to avoid the Roadhog, but got the ace magic will not be enough. As IU finally is in a kind of stable position. Cadenza just gonna get out if he can. Calamity in a precarious spot here. I don't know if the defense matrix is gonna be enough to get him out.
just gets out, maybe? Okay,
yeah,
just out there. Super scrappy first fight, you know, constantly felt like a 2v3, 3v2. Purdue the whole time. Unfortunately, IU's able to come up on top there. They didn't have to get any ultimates to them either, but Purdue as well have a lot of ults here.
And now set up on the high ground is a very good spot for Purdue, as we see the overclocked pops and a lot of space. They is going to come back with self-destructing online, so it effectively doesn't matter as both Cassidy and fall. And now it's just a matter of staying stable. I would like to call out that Wasp has switched for the first time to set off Vendetta onto the Reaper. That's very interesting.
Yeah, another good character against the Roadhog here. I think that's probably in response due to asymmetric going on the Cassidy. Definitely a big threat for the Vendetta, shutting down a lot of the characters.
And immediately we can see the Reaper sort of paying off, pushing out a lot of space. However, we do see Genesis pop the Kitsune Rush. Purdue just an optic height, no response needed. However, does fall back and see on the angle. Once again, the Sojourn 1v1 can be so difficult at times. Roadhog taking this height, and now Purdue has lost a lot of their control over this point.
See, Purdue still has both support ults here. We'll see if they get aggressive with going in here to the room.
You see the window is going to fall immediately, and the Roadhog soon thereafter. These two shots, which is a terrifying notion. It's going to be a quick little fight.
IU is still pushing it, looks like. Oh, no, off the point now. I really like the composition switches here from Purdue. They're going to go back to the Vendetta this time with Toodle on it. Just a lot more damage on this composition from Purdue. It helps the blocks Roadhog.
And opting to play the double flex DPS, or the double flex DPS. It's going to be that a lot of space out. However, Cassidy will immediately fall, and now Purdue is up one from a really bad spot. Whole Hog not going to find anything, as Clem finds actually P, and Toodle is going to die once again to Zach on the Roadhog.
Yeah, I'm noticing a theme here where it feels like every single fight, either Cadenza or Calamite is able to get a picture, on their high damage supports. Definitely feels like a difference maker.
This ends now.
Overclock is going to come out from P. However, not really able to find anything forced off the position you wanted by that Diva, and the defense matrix is just such a wall for you. And your health bar is not looking good if you try to push into that Diva. Fighting on the high ground, Mark's bad, and it looks like he's forced it out. You're gonna occupy the part here. I don't want to fight under, but I do not think you want to fight under to do that. But a lot of space. You see it immediately onto Toodle. However, Waff's Death Blossom is going to find two onto Roadhog and Lucio of IU. He is going to fall once again to Calamite. Now it's just a Tracer versus the world, and Purdue once again gonna stable after a pretty quick fight.
I'm going pro.
Yeah, huge ult there from Waff, cleaning up, 2 kills. Only gets credit for 1, but essentially did all the damage there against the Roadhog. This is finally going to force a swap from IU onto the Sigma. I think a good pick here. The Rock stuns half of the team here on the new side. It'll be interesting to see if this is going to be enough to cap that point.
Immediately, a lot of damage is represented by Dejoka onto the Sigma. Knowing he has that self-destruct with the second life, kind of letting himself play hyper-aggressive, and actually he is going to fall in the process. Trading Toodle for actually P or before scenario with DPS off the board. Asymmetric and Waft also trading, and now it's tanks versus supports. It's pretty equal ultimates too. But they capped the second point? I mean, that's unfortunate. Yeah, just a bit of a C9 there. But you have to keep fighting. Give it a little bit of space. But
yeah, I was just about to say great kill from Joka, protecting Cadenza there from the Tracer, but it did force him off the cart for contest.
It's just unfortunate, but you are still in a good spot if you can do the time low for IU. However, Joka's health bar for Signal Rocks is not kind. He's not able to keep the defense matrix that. Joey's doing everything he can to contest his high ground, but he cannot get the signal off. The fight for Cart as the Kitsune Rush is topped. Toodle in a very precarious spot, getting out on literally 1 HP. Asymmetric will fall to Waft, but Waft is traded out by Not Chacho. Now, trying to put Cactus to his critical, and Tuda protecting him with the ultimate. Lucio finds Toodle as Joka finds actually P. Captain Sunrise from Calamite is going to get him killed. However, the fight is a stable spot for Purdue as it's just asymmetric for the world. And Joey's gonna look to find the skill, seeing that the Lucio is back in the payload. Oh, what a scrappy fight.
Indeed, asymmetric kind of fragging out there on the end on the Widow. Didn't quite matter. Huge ultimate there from Toodle, killing the enemy Lucio who had the sound barrier. That could have, been the game end right there if sound barrier came out.
And we see Wahoo about to drop, but the breakpoint is still online as the overclock is popped from actually P, going to force a response from Purdue. As Joey's just gonna jump on him to get him off that backline once again. Such incredible skill from Diva. Now the beat drop is deployed. Try to attack the bunker of Purdue. Even with the beat drop, it's not enough, and Wahoo using the reactive Death Blossom is gonna find the Lucio. Actually, he immediately falling to Joka, almost falling into another C9. However, with 4.8 years left, Joey is able to push it on. Now it's just a Sigma and a Widow, and that is going to be map 2 to Purdue.
Absolutely huge there. Waft once again securing some massive kills with the Death Blossom. That's the difference maker there in that final fight. Being able to first prevent IU from using the sound barrier in the fight. Next, beating IU when they had the sound barrier up. The Sigma felt like a somewhat threatening switch against the Diva, but ultimately, as soon as the accretion was used, it felt like the Sigma was kind of useless at that point. It was basically just an accretion bot, and if IU couldn't capitalize off the accretion, it felt like their composition just wasn't quite strong enough to break all the peel there coming out from Joka.
For sure, yeah. I mean, like, Joey on the Diva really did it all. He was peeling, he was like finding multiple picks per fight. I can see now why IU was so eager to ban that Diva first map.
Yeah, 100%. That quite a few composition changes there on the side of Purdue and eventually on IU side, but the Diva was the big change that really changed the whole tone here of map 2 compared to map 1.
Yeah, and I mean, I'd be rather surprised if we see a swap off Diva for the rest of this series here. Purdue kind of finding their stride now with the Diva allowed in. And Waft on the Reaper too really put IU into an awkward spot. You can't really play Roadhog into Reaper without a lot of damage being represented onto you.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if IU will try and walk out on the Roadhog again here on the third map, or if they'll just opt to go with the Sig or something else again. We'll have to see on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult if you're IU because it seems as though they were very much so. Oh, okay, sorry. We're on Suravasa here, and IU is going to opt to ban Vendetta. However, Purdue is going to ban Roadhog.
Interesting. So I wonder if Purdue might go with Junker Queen then here on Suravasa if they're banning the Roadhog. Be interesting to see that.
Match.
Yep.
Vendetta ban also seems like a strong one coming out of IU. They saw both Toodle and Wafts bring it out at multiple points throughout the match. They know seems to be a comfortable pick for both of them. So although, maybe not, the ultimate counter to their Roadhog, definitely just a strong character overall. If you can, limit the flexibility there, for Purdue, it's definitely a good pick.
And is that right?
It looks like it.
All right.
I hope they go with it.
Me too. I don't know the last. Oh. Oh.
Nope.
Stop playing with my heart, Zach. Stop playing with my heart.
Or are they gonna play Sim? Or are they just gonna TP out?
So curious. Alright, it does seem like we're gonna roll it on Reinhardt, so that's exciting. I don't know the last time I've seen a Reinhardt in one of these matches. And Joey is going to opt on to playing Zarya instead of Diva, and Purdue is going to roll out on Zarya Reaper, which is definitely a bit of a deadly combination. Because even though this is a game where you're only allowed one tank, Reaper with Zarya bubbles is practically a second tank. We're going to see that play out here as Loft is going to be the one walking in front of Joey and forcing the Reinhardt back. representing so much damage on his shotguns, you know, with that life steal, and you can't damage him with a bubble on him, or you're beating Zarya so much charge. Obviously, is going to fall to asymmetric as the all begins. Not a good spot here for Purdue. Down here, main source of damage. Off 2 is going to fall, and now there's no damage inside of the game. Whether Joey can get out, which he is not able to. Nice fight.
Yeah, I'm curious to see if Joey's going to swap off the Zarya here. We'll stay on the Zarya. He was using, I think, every single bubble on the Reaper there, and it had mixed results. It's kind of hard to, you know, walk at the Rhine here if the Zarya is low charge, so it's really relying on having high charge. And, you know, part of that you can generate from, you know, bubbling yourself on the fire strikes, but then you don't have it for your Reaper, so it's a little bit of an awkward scenario.
Yeah, if you're Purdue, you're gonna have to opt to play a little bit of a slower playstyle than you were used to on Diva's sort of dive composition. However, Wamp's immediately going to fall as we're putting a lot of damage on the Echo, but not be able to close the deal. Falls to Reinhardt. Yet again, another fall to fight very fast to IU.
Yeah, Purdue should get one more engage here, but it's going to be difficult considering, you know, IU has both support ults. They're coming up on Shatter. They're coming up on, you know, Kitsune Rush. Meanwhile, Purdue is maybe going to have their support ults here.
We see a swap onto the Diva and a swap onto Cassidy. I'd like to see J-Joka on Diva as much as possible. It's not even that his Zarya is bad, it's just his Diva's a work of art, so to speak.
100%. Diva's great against Rhine too. You know, you just keep your distance, eat every fire strike. Rhine is not able to do anything.
And immediately we're going to see a lot of aggression onto the Echo, going to force a copy very early into the fight. Now Purdue's going to opt to play this slow, play their lives, and immediately take the back up onto Diva. And now, as the Reinhardt pins in, Joey is going to have a free entry onto the backline. Once again, that Echo. However, WAP does fall to Sojourn in the process. Now Purdue's just going to back off.
Are they for real?
Interesting fight there. Really only the duplicate coming out from IU side, so they still have 4 ults. Purdue coming in with both support ults. You know, way less of an ult bank here, but both support ults are huge and still could be plenty to win a fight here.
Sure. Yeah, this is, still could go either way. Just depends on how Purdue plays. Not only talking about the ult and how you play the neutral, and Joey does find J-Joka, or Joey does find actually P as Purdue finds asymmetric, and Chacho is going to boost the PvP off the map. Slam not gonna find anyone. The Q drop is deployed as Sentinel finds not Chacho, and now feed onto the backline here with the point caps, and this is just gonna jump off the map as Block finishes off the Reinhardt. There we go.
Great fight win from Purdue. Took the early engage, as you said. It's not all about the ults, it's about the neutral too. You know, Toodle got a pick, Joey got a pick, and you know, they had to compete still to win that, but definitely worth it for the point control.
We're just gonna see sort of a slow start to this fight. However, Joey is deep in there without his team. The mega health pack just keeping him alive barely, and he's not going to opt to collapse onto him, which is a godsend if you're Joey, to be honest. However, they are just going to opt to take the point and find WAP as Joey was nowhere to be found in the chaos. However, that does not stop Joker from finding Sojourn and dropping that Lucio very low. You know, he's getting out, but he's taking something on his way.
Good to see he knows his limits. If that was me on Diva, I would have 100% have chased that Lucio and probably lost my pick.
And here we're going to see a lot of space by IU as, you know, it gets one before the fight even started. Now Joey's getting aggressive, that's the main given. Reinhardt is not going to be able to find much here. Beat drop is deployed from IU, and now the aggression is all on IU's side. He's going to force the self-destruct off of J-Joka as now Chacho finds Loft, breaking the copy of J-Joka, and Cadenza does find the throw on Reinhardt. Now it's a matter of Echo as Cadenza also finds Lucio, moves off to actually too little too late as Purdue's just going to cap the point, and I believe that should be second point to Purdue.
Huge fight win once again. Purdue seems to somehow always win these fights where they don't have the beat advantage. You know, IU went in with the beat engage. You know, I thought that they were going to be able to kill multiple with that. Instead, you know, Joey moves the Rhine charge, basically slows the engage there from IU, and you know, Purdue's able to heal out for the beat to expire.
Now we're going to see a lot of aggressive Kitsune rush in combination with the Dragon Blade as Loft finds 2, Deijoka finds another 2, and is just going to finish off this Kiriko meters away from her spawn. That's a very good, very fast fight.
Yeah, I love that. A lot of aggression there. You know, they knew that IU didn't really have anything to stop it. It's because they used the sound barrier in the previous fight. You know, really the only threat there would have been, you know, an Earth Shatter, but wasn't quite up there on IU's side.
Very unfortunate early pick on Strudel and Alright, 3v5 is Purdue, so now you're just kind of fighting for any little extra bit of percent. Joker's able to strafe away from the Earth Shatter by flying upwards, and they are going to first commit of the overclock to take the point. Joker's going to opt to use self-destruct to get his mech back. On 25 HP, allowed to remag. Now he's going to get the charge. No, he's able to get back to his Kiriko. Wow. Joey really does know the limit of the
back in. Pretty good fight there from Purdue despite losing it. They got 2 ults despite being down 2, and because Joey lives, they have a quick engage right back into it.
Deadeye popped by Strudel, kind of in a forced awkward position, and find not Chacho in the process. Now down here, Lucio is IU. They rush to top 2, that's how we fight. However, the beat plus, oh no, the Dragon Blade from IU, not gonna find anyone. And that's a good fight to win if you're Purdue.
Another great win, another fight where Purdue gets an early pick on the Lucio, has the sound barrier. You know, somehow they keep winning these fights. I think they may just not want to have sound barrier on their end and keep winning.
Purdue knows their way around the Lucio very well, is what I'm seeing. Now we're just going to see Joey kind of going for a flank here onto this Kiriko. However, we're going to see a pretty heavy collapse on the Joker, but Waft does find asymmetric as their heads are turned for Deijoka. And Deijoka's finding Lucio on the way out. Genensa going to find Sigma, and Waft's going to find actually P as Deijoka claimed the last kill on Genesis, and that's 0.3 to Purdue.
That's huge there again. Once again, you know, Joey causing a lot of ruckus on the Diva. Him and Waft went on a flank there around the edge. They forced the Sojourn and both supports to look at them, and you know that let the rest of the team come in and you know collapse from behind.
Swap onto Sigma. I mean that is as of last fight. You can see Deijoka once again wrapping around onto the backline of IU. Waft is going to pop the Dragon Blade to force the beat drop, but it is not received by Genesis, and Waft is able to finish the kill, and actually he falls soon thereafter. Not Chacho falling to Joey as Doodle finds asymmetric, and a cleanup onto Zach Sigma, and we'll get the first cap on this point.
Another fight win with the Kitsune Blade here from Purdue. They still have 3 ults. They have beat advantage again. Winning a fight where IU uses the beat. You know, so Purdue will have the sound barrier to counter, you know, either Rhythm Flux or the Sojourn ult.
Yeah, and it's ridiculous how fast Calamity was able to beat the beat drop. We're just going to use the Deadeye to kind of force a lot of space. Pop, you're not going to be able to get aggressive with it. Lost the ball to Genji. However, beat drop is online for Purdue, so this is a very, very winnable fight. He's down 1. Find the backline. Find anything, he's going to force a lot of space and a lot of time. He's fairly contesting here. Beat drop is still online, so he knows he can hold on, especially with the self-destruct. He grab but Pop has actually key finds 2 members of Purdue. I'm not going to opt to use self-destruct and reset the fight.
Yeah, unfortunately Calamite got picked there. You know, I feel like Purdue definitely could have re-engaged and potentially won the fight with the sound barrier. But, you know, better not to use it than to use it and have it get canceled here. You know, Purdue is going to win this point if they win this next fight here anyways. And coming in with, you know, both support ults and the Diva Bomb, you know, is more than enough to win it.
Purdue just opting to use the ultimate fight in a 5v5 because they will win the game if they win this fight. And here they go, already put the map, forcing a lot of stories away from IU. Rush is going to be deployed by Genesis, and the beat drop is used in return, and now Purdue has all the aggression on their side. Sluice is being forced all the way out, and Calami's going to choose to take that 1v1. And Purdue is enabled to flip the point in asymmetric attempts to pop a bit of a hero blade, but it's not enough as Cadenza now drops the Kitsune Rush. CO beat is 10% off, not in time to save Zach. And now you can't even pop it to touch as Purdue will take map 3.
Huge. Once again, the D.Va is the difference maker here. You know, I was a little scared at the end when Purdue didn't get any kills out of the sound barrier, but, you know, they held on to the Kitsune Rush. They made sure not to stack their support ults, and, you know, once the sound barrier forced all the cooldowns there on the side of IU, the Kitsune Rush was able to, you know, clean up the rest of the other team.
For sure, yeah, just such a, like, once Joey's on the D.Va, I feel like Purdue's just in their element. They play around the D.Va so extremely well. You know, all the engages are kind of designed around her, regardless of which characters the DPS of Purdue are on. You know, we saw a lot of different combinations between the DPS players, and they all just seem to work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it kind of feels like they really can just play whatever they like. You know, whatever DPS they feel most comfortable, you know, playing against, you know, the enemy tank or the enemy DPS is kind of sufficient for them. Um, you know, Purdue really just, I guess on this map, the main difference compared to Midtown is they went back to the Lucio. Makes a lot of sense. You know, you kind of really need the speed on Flashpoint just due to how quickly, you know, the percentages tick up. You know, you lose out a lot of fights without the sort of speed. So yeah, I think it's a good pick there.
I mean, especially when you're running Genji and D.Va, you know,
Hmm.
they love being able to chase down targets with the Lucio speed and just not letting anyone get away.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean the Genji Blade and the Kitsune Rush, you know, that was multiple fight wins with that combination. It was super effective. Where, you know, I think they should stick with that, honestly. That felt like just, you know, free fight wins for them every time. I don't think IU really got an answer for it ever.
It looks like we will be playing on Ruinous Sapi here, and IU is to ban someone eventually.
See who they go with. They can't ban D.Va, so I don't think there's a clear pick for them.
For sure. Because, you know, like we said, as long as there's a D.Va in play, you can kind of just opt to play whatever you want around it.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, a lot of the things that Purdue want to play around the D.Va, other than the Vendetta, which has already been banned, are things that IU also wants to play. They don't want to ban Lucio,
Hmm.
they don't want to ban Kiriko,
Hmm.
and they don't want to ban Sojourn. So it's a difficult choice here. You might just ban a character of a role so that Purdue can't ban another character of that role. That might just be the selection at that point. You know, banning a support,
Hmm.
like banning Lifeweaver, just so they can't ban a support.
Yeah. Yeah, totally fair. Yeah, I think the only thing I can think of that might disrupt what Purdue wants to play a bit would be Lucio. But IU wants that as well, and the cast ban comes through instead.
Interesting. I can't say Cass is the ban I was expecting. Toodle was definitely doing a lot on the Cassidy for sure on Suravasa, but then you just switch to, you know, Sojourn. Um,
Yeah.
but that will be the ban. You know, like we said though, there's not really a lot you can ban as long as
Hmm.
D.Va is on the board. And Purdue, again, the world's kind of their oyster with the bans here. Um, looks like they're going to ban Sigma, which is fair. That does seem to be the comfort
Mm.
pick when Roadhog is unavailable for the enemy tank.
Yeah, I'm curious with the cast ban if, you know, IU's gonna come out with like a sneaky Doomfist or, you know, a Hazard or, you know, some other character that appreciates the Cassidy ban, or if they were just like, we just needed to ban a DPS, and
Mhm.
that's why they chose it. You know, I'm interested to see if, you know, this has any impact on the comp they're playing, or if they're gonna, you know, stick with more of the same. But obviously the Sig ban, that is interesting. I'm curious to see what kind of tank we'll see out of IU, because aside from, I guess Hog's not banned, so I guess maybe they'll go back to Hog here, even if it wasn't working before. They might just go back to their comfort pick for, on that end.
For sure. And when you're on the Roadhog, you at the very least have proven that you're kind of gonna force Waft off the Vendetta onto the Reaper, um,
Hmm.
which may or may not be too much of a comfort pick by comparison. But even still, like if you're gonna run on the Roadhog, it's been such a problem, honestly, for
Hmm.
IU.
Yeah, actually, you mentioned that, and it makes me curious. If they really wanted to play the Roadhog, I feel like it would have made sense to ban Reapers. So the fact that they didn't, makes me think they might not play it.
Yeah, but with Sigma off the board, Zach seems to kind of have a limited character roster between the Sigma and the Roadhog. So it
Hmm.
does look as though he's going to opt to just roll out on Roadhog, which I can't say I'm too surprised about.
Yeah, and Purdue expects this as well because we're seeing the Reaper immediately chosen by Waft here as well.
Once again, rolling out the double flex.
Rig here. That's interesting as well.
Rig Kiriko. I mean, definitely, more of a sturdy character than Lucio's Rig, but
Yeah, I think the main difference here is the Mei as well from IU side. Good character against Devo, wall offer healing, force, Hoosiers to get around the wall.
immediately they're going to see a hook and an attempt of a wall on fly up again. Like you said, because Hoosiers so mobile and so evasive, and immediately Purdue is controlling a lot of space on IU. May attempt to wrap around here. Little avail as Purdue is now just pushing the spot. And if you're IU, you're kind of looking for hook. You're not going to do a lot of defense. However, Joey's health bar is going to drop very low in response to that hook. Maybe also going to escape the effects of that defense matrix. And now, for all intents and purposes, taking fallen. Will fall, but actually Pete is traded out, and Not Chacho is also found. It's just gonna fall. However, it was a good attempt for Purdue, and hopefully they can get a fast recontest to capitalize on the missing Sojourn Rig.
Yeah, nice picks there at the end from Purdue. The Mei's definitely going to be a problem here, having something that can damage, Joey, even with the defense matrix up. Interesting to see if, Joey's going to stick with the D.Va this whole round, or Mei feel forced to make adjustments.
Fall Roadhog hook from downtown. That seemed like it was borderline max range. But Purdue's still going to have to fight. Ball back there. Loft does find a trade onto Not Chacho. However, I believe it is in vain as the backline falls. And fight for the cart.
Yeah, IU's going to take the lead with that fight win there, and they're also up huge in terms of ultimates. Both DPS ults close to Kitsune, close to Hog. Meanwhile, Purdue, getting into the 70s on some things, but IU probably will go quick here with some ultimates to win this fight.
Just like he called, actually he is going to pop that overclock, and Joey is not going to be able to block it as Waft is falling off the map at the hands of Not Chacho's. Down both DPS. Purdue does choose to invest speed drop. However, another boop off the map onto Galamede, and Joey is not allowed to remech. Wow, good fight from IU.
Yeah, Purdue now comes in with ultimates, but still, IU sitting on 4 ultimates, both support ults, Blizzard, whole hog. Purdue's going to need to make sure they hold the lines here for the Blizzard.
Kitsune rush dropped. May in a very bad spot here. Even with Blizzard, is likely to fall, and having Welcome popped by both parties. However, Not Chacho is falling very, very low and is going to die. And Shoka is going to find Roadhog, and that is a fight win for Purdue. That is what you want, save your momentum.
Huge win there. Purdue takes, both support ults for support ults. You can take that any day. IU still holding on to the Blizzard. Less of a threat now that they don't have any of their support ults though.
And on the side of Purdue, the only ult we saw online is this Vendetta ult, so a big question mark on this fight is just how good is he of it. Popped around this corner here. And directed onto Roadhog, not enough to kill. However, asymmetry does fall. Joker will his back, but if you're up one, it's Purdue. Even down your tank is very fightable backline. Vendetta. Toodle finds one, and Calamite picks up the kill on Lucio. Now it's Roadhog versus 4, and that's not a favorite fight.
Yeah, huge fight win there from Purdue. They're going to get the first checkpoint here. Coming to the next fight, really no ultimates, only tank ults. Neither of these tank ults are super impactful. Really just gives Joker another life, but the whole hog doesn't do a whole lot against a team with, you know, defense matrices.
Yeah, it's a pretty dry fight here, and we see a lot of trying to... The Roadhog get knocked off the high ground by Vendetta Sword. Joey already getting aggressive, knowing he has that self-destruct. Roadhog's not even getting the chance to use the hold hog. And now no ult on the line for IU. We're simply going to clean up with the 2 picks that he got in the fight. Now the backline struggling to live. As he finds Calamite as he gets a little bit too aggressive. That's not going to stop Purdue from taking the lead. And if you're Purdue, you're happy with that. You know, even down 1, you can afford to give up the lead because you have the lead.
Yeah, should disengage here. Looks like they will. Interesting to see that IU will go onto Vendetta. I thought the name was a good pick.
Does fall to actually P. It seems Purdue's just opting to play more of an aggressive fight here because they have their lead and because they have ward spawn. They can afford to kind of just die on cart and bleed out time. And even despite the aggression, Joey manages to live for a long time. Not going to invest the self-destruct, but even still, that's a lot of time off IU's clock.
Yeah, now coming into this next fight, we have 9 total ultimates coming online here. Interesting to see who will use what first. You know, I like the Kitsune as a fight engage always. I think the beat should be saved for later, especially for the overclock. So we'll see who acts first here.
And one thing I will say that's pretty interesting is Watt's been very consistent at fighting down off the jet. I wouldn't consider a particularly strong ult, relatively speaking. He's been using it in ways that, you know, you typically don't see it used. Drop for IU and an Ajax Calamite in a spot you really don't want to see. Gonna find one with his ult, but now it's a completely lost fight for Purdue as ults drop the board.
Yeah, Ajax is definitely rough there. I was thinking, you know, huge opportunity from Waft for the Death Blossom there. You know, after, you know, IU's beat came out, if he got the beat himself, pops the Death Blossom, could definitely turn that fight around, but it wasn't meant to be there, unfortunately.
Something that you're going to have to look out for. Art is not very easy to test without your D.Va here. Watt unwilling to give up the lead. Still just, you know, have to edge that card. Buy some time for Joey to get back. And now setting up for a flank, potentially looking for the death block to the backline. However, almost immediately without Wraithform, might spell death for Watt, but a big defensive matrix comes out. Joker as overclock and Ohar are popped on the side of IU. Forced to give up a lot of space. Still, the lead has not been taken. Opt to recontest here. As they do with 4 minutes left on the board. Toodle in, falls elusive deep in the backline. However, by them around. Fighting tooth and nail for this lead as the Vendetta ult will be caught by asymmetric, not to find anything but time. Once again setting up for the flank, potentially looking for the death block onto the backline, and it is popped, forcing a lot of cooldown. However, going to fall to the house. The after self-destruct has been built by Joka as Toodle does finally go onto asymmetric. Now the beat is dropped by not touchable, where the Knight for Purdue is still 80 100. But not doing the fight, they're still stable. Joey's health bar still pretty pristine, and the self-destruct still online. In fact, they're the ones taking space after IU speed drop. And now the health bars are looking very bad. Joey is not set to take his health bar because of the self-destruct. Now good as find Genesis in the backline of IU. Now he's gonna have free reign over the entire backline.
Quite the crazy fight there. You know, Purdue somehow keeps the lead the whole time as well here. Now they have 4 ults, and now they're ready to engage Slack.
Yeah, and immediately the opportunity rush is dropped by Fenza, which is going to immediately that Jidoka's gonna chase down Nacho. Die, and now it's just a back if you're IU. You're lucky to live with a minute left on the board. Not what you want to see.
Yeah, that was a great engagement. Now they've pushed the cart so far, they're increasing their lead here. IU doesn't really have an answer. Mark goes down as well.
Drop to Vendetta ult plus just general fire. Now it's cleanup duty without their tank. No hook to stop the momentum. And I mean, it's a precarious spot for IU.
IU does have ultimates coming into this. They're going to have the beat soon as well. So it's definitely possible for them to win the fight, especially with that pick.
Oh. I don't see actually find Calabi on the attempt backline. However, you are down too many members for IU. Roadhog alone is not going to stop the Tifa and down. Alive is Zach, but he's going to kill. Chacho going to find walks on a very bad kill. Still cleaning up though. Not ready to give up the fight. The mech.